We've looked at the feeding of the 5,000 in Mark and Matthew and Luke, and today we turn to the Gospel of John. And in John, if you look in your Bible in chapter 6, the feeding of the 5,000 is verses 1 through 15, but it's also part of a larger, what's called the Bread of Life discourse. And all of chapter 6, which is extensive, begins with the feeding of the 5,000 and then this imagery of Jesus being the bread of life. So the verse for the day is John 6, verse 35. Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. And so if you look at chapter 6, this invitation that Jesus offers to come to him, it's in verse 35, it's in verse 37, it's in verse 44 and verse 45. This whole thing of come to me, come to me. Jesus is inviting, he's drawing people to him. And another thing we see in John's version of this story and all that unfolds is how Jesus is the one who has come down from heaven to do the will of his Father. And again, if you look in your Bible in John chapter 6, you can note in verse 38, 41, 42, 50, 51, in all these verses, he's saying Jesus is the one who has come down, who has come down. John's gospel, remember, is the latest to be written down. It's written down the farthest from Jesus' physical earthly life. And part of John's emphasis is that Jesus is the one who has come down from heaven to give life to the world. And if you read John's gospel with that theme in mind, you'll see it repeatedly. That's why even in John chapter 3, in that famous passage where some of us grew up hearing the phrase, unless you are born again, the Greek word there is the Greek word anathon, which really means unless you're born from above. So Jesus is the one who has come down to give life to the world, and we also need to have a spiritual birth as well. That's part of the theme we see throughout John's gospel, and it's here in this Bread of Life discourse. So as you may know, John's gospel includes a number of I am statements. I am the light of the world. I am the good shepherd. I am the water of life, and I am the bread of life is one of those I am sayings. And it's the belief that if we come to him and if we believe in him, he says we'll never be hungry or thirsty. And this is speaking not at a literal level. There are countless Christians who have been hungry and thirsty. But spiritually speaking, Jesus is the one who satisfies completely. And that's what John is asserting and saying Jesus is the bread of life. When we partake of him, we will be content and we will have all that we need.